to this webinar. So this is going to be looking at smarter CRM solutions utilizing the Microsoft Power Platform. So just to give you a bit of background, if you've not met me or spoken to me before, so my name is Sam Garry. I'm part of the Power Platform pre-sales team at Valto. So I get involved very early doors when we have customers approaching us about wanting to do more with automation or reporting. And yeah, that's where I get involved and sort of walk through how we help the types of solutions that we see and sort of guiding our customers on that digital transformation journey. So there's a QR code there if you wanted to connect with me on LinkedIn. We're actually doing a bit of a challenge at the moment where I'm tasked with posting content, whether that's work related or social related, for the next 30 days. So yeah, do please feel free to connect. And then a bit about myself. So you can see the bottom right photo there. We actually do quite a lot of social challenges at Valto. That was actually the 3 Peaks challenge that we did last year, where we raised money for a charity that we sponsor called We Mind the Gap. We actually raised over £5,000 for them. We actually did the Welsh 3000s hiking challenge this summer, which I think I'm still recovering from, to be honest. But yeah, in terms of the actual presentation today and the webinar, what we're going to be covering is a few different areas really when it comes to CRM solutions and the Power Platform. So firstly, we're going to be looking at common problems with traditional CRM systems, what actually makes the Power Platform different to these other systems that we see. I'll be showing an actual live demonstration as well. So we've got a few model-driven apps, so Microsoft model-driven apps, which for people that aren't familiar with those, I'll explain a bit more about what they do a bit further on. We'll be looking at some example Power BI reports as well in the context of a sort of sales and project management CRM and the types of reports that we see off the back of those. And then there's also going to be looking at a Power Pages example as well. So again, I speak to a lot of people that don't or aren't necessarily familiar with what Power Pages is. So again, I'll be covering what that is and how it can tie in with this CRM aspect using Power Platform. We'll also be looking at the actual key benefits of the Power Platform with this. And obviously do please ask any questions as we go along. And for those that will be watching on YouTube as well, please feel free to add any comments in the comment section and we'll make sure to get those answered. So to start with then, why traditional CRMs fall short? So there's a few different reasons really. And I suppose it's good to start with the obvious. So we've got lots of CRM systems out there, and I speak to a lot of people daily that use some of the ones that you can see on the screen with the cost comparison, but also many other different types of CRM systems. So what's good about those ones is they offer quite a slick interface and they're quite quick to start. But the sort of downside with some of these systems is the costs can add up really quickly. So if we're licensing a CRM on a per user basis, and your organization is expanding or rapidly growing, those costs can really add up. But there's also sometimes a slightly bigger issue in that the systems that you're using also need customizing as well. So those custom workflows or new approval pathways, you'll end up often needing to either pay to get those customized by the organization that hosts that CRM system, or even pay for another consultant to do some sort of bespoke development on top of that. So what essentially starts out as quite a simple CRM can quickly become a bit of a black hole for time and also money. The other sort of thing that we see with traditional CRM systems and why they fall short is that one size fits all mentality. So again, going back to the point of it's there, obviously they look fine and they can be used quite readily off the shelf. But what again we're seeing is you're paying for those types of systems, but you're potentially only utilizing say 60% of that particular solution. So as those license costs ramp up, as you saw on the previous screen, you're actually not utilizing the full CRM functionality because you're having to either fit in to the way that the CRM works rather than how you'd actually like your processes to work. So I suppose one of the downfalls really is that it assumes every business works in the same way, whereas obviously a lot of these CRMs offer a bit more limited flexibility. So yeah, you can rename fields and change, sort of shuffle columns around, but actually changing the data structure or the permissions or potentially even the logic is a lot more difficult, or sometimes it's completely locked out. So this can often lead to manual processes or building out spreadsheets, which I suppose in a lot of ways defeats the point of having a CRM in the first place. We've also then got poor integration with business processes or other systems. So again, what we see a lot of, and a lot of the customers that come to us and we talk to, they have off-the-shelf systems or other tools, but they can only really integrate if the vendor offers that sort of connector. So if they want to sync with like a finance system, or if you're pulling data from like a bespoke tool, that can often prove quite difficult. So even if integrations are available, they're often surface level. So it's good for, I suppose, quite basic data syncing, but for the more complex workflows or business rules, it can become a lot of work and quite a big challenge. So that's something we see quite a lot of. Whereas with the Power Platform and the Microsoft stack, I suppose you're not really limited on what's in that marketplace, because you've got things over like 1,000 connectors out the box, and you can build custom APIs. So everything runs in your data and in your environment. So you've got full control over how it works. So to move on to, I suppose, why the Power Platform is different. So Power Apps, there's a few different areas. So Power Apps being the first. So this is where your CRM effectively comes to life. So Power Apps lets you create tailored apps, which I'll show shortly. So whether that's like a full CRM, maybe like lead tracking or project management tracking or dashboards, you can build all of this without actually having to write code. As we all know, Power Platform is a no-code, low-code solution. So you can actually control the forms, the logic, the experience. So it's more of a custom software, and it can be delivered quite quickly as well. We then have Dataverse. So Dataverse is effectively the secure, sort of almost like a scalable data backbone of the CRM. So Dataverse stores all of your CRM data. So this could be things like clients, contacts, leads, quotes, projects. You get all of that in more of a structured and relational database format. Because again, you're utilizing the Microsoft stack, you get enterprise grade security, things like built-in compliance, and there's obviously then no more data silos off the back of that, because it's again using that relational database. We've then got Power Automate. So this is looking at actually the automation behind the processes. So this effectively connects everything. So looking at things like in the context of a CRM, sending follow-up emails, triggering approvals, and actually integrating with things like Outlook, Teams, SharePoint, and those other third-party tools or systems that you're using. If it's basically a repetitive task, that's where the Power Platform and Power Automate comes in. We then got Power BI. So this is now looking at all of the dashboards and the reporting and the data off the back of these CRMs to build out visual things like sales pipelines, team performance, project statuses, even things like customer trends. So we can collect all of that data that we've got within these CRM systems using the Power Platform, and then apply Power BI to then build out reports, which again, we've got some example reports that I'll show. And then finally, we've got Power Pages. So for people that don't know, Power Pages is effectively an extension of your website. It can be used and seen as a client-facing portal. So this allows your customers or your clients or your suppliers to securely log in to an external portal where they can do things like view project updates, they can submit inquiries or documents, they can download files or view information that you want to share with them. And again, this can be done securely so that one customer isn't going to see customer two's information. So again, I'll show you an example of what this looks like in a second as well. So when you combine all of these different areas of the Power Platform, you've got more than just a CRM. You're sort of building out a full sort of business system, really, which you can just gradually evolve as you grow. So for the actual CRM overview, so in terms of what we'll be looking at and where we see the CRM, I suppose, functionality used, we see it a lot for lead and opportunity management. So when a lead comes in, be able to capture information about the source, the type of lead, maybe who's dealing with it, if we're sending out proposals or updating the customer, etc. We've got project tracking and project creation. So again, if your lead moves through to an opportunity and then that opportunity progresses through to an actual project, we can capture that information and assign tasks as part of the project. So again, we've got that. We've then got things like timesheet entries and actually labour management. So again, if you're an organisation that relies on timesheets, we can utilise that as part of the model-driven app as well. So if we're looking at a project and we want to be able to log time against that project for either contractors or internal people, and that's how they get paid. Again, this is the sort of thing we can see and what we've built out with a lot of our customer base in terms of that CRM functionality. We've got things like approval flows, stage and gate processes, which again make a bit more sense in the actual demonstration. And then the customer access, as I mentioned, via a Power Pages portal. And obviously we've got real-time reporting with Power BI. And again, we've got examples of that. So I'll move on to the actual live demonstration of what we see with the CRM. So that'll be a model-driven app, Power BI and Power Pages. So I'll just flick over to my other screen. So I'm going to look left now because it's on the other screen. But yeah, in terms of what we see here, this is a model-driven app. So this is unlocking Dataverse. We're now building out tables, fields. This is actually just a dashboard, so we can actually look at even embedding Power BI into these model-driven apps. So this is just a dashboard about some projects. So again, all the information we're capturing, obviously we can then report on. So in terms of a project management tool, you can see here we've got leads. So if we wanted to click on this lead, for example, all of these fields that you see here and the different tables, we can customize this to exactly what it is that you would need. So all these tables and fields are fully customizable. You can see here we've got the business process flow at the top. So what this business process flow does is allow us to have that stage and gate process. So in terms of the lead management section of the model-driven app, we might want to capture certain information about this lead before we can move it through to an opportunity here. So in this particular case, we've got the name of the customer, when they inquired, and if we've won it or not, but we can capture things like where the lead source came from, as you can see here. So we've got website, it might be PPC or SEO, that type of thing. We can put any of the sort of fields that you see here and obviously customize that as much as we want. We can then push that through to an opportunity stage. What we can then do as part of this stage and gate process is actually add in approval processes, or we can send emails off automatically, for example. So say we've created a project proposal and it now says proposal sent, that might automatically want to be sent out or be sent out to the customer. So that's something we can do with model-driven apps. It might be that when we get to the project stage and we've won that particular project, we now want to bring in other people within the organization. So our project management team, for example, we might want to alert them that this project is now needing to be planned in. We've got communication. So again, for that CRM functionality, if you're a part of the sales team or the project team, you want to be able to keep up to date with where things are at and what's going on. What's nice about model-driven apps is we can actually integrate this with Outlook as well. So if we were sending particular emails or project proposals through to that customer, it will automatically get tagged and stamped in this model-driven app here. If we're logging calls, again, we can put information about calls or meetings. We've actually seen organizations then build out reports off the back of this. So it works really well for even like an account management piece. So if you've got some of your top customers, for example, that have got account managers assigned to them, you might want to have an overview of how many meetings or on-site meetings have we had with one of our top customers this quarter. We can just quickly grab that information from this model-driven app and then start to build out those reports. And again, we've got task management here as well. So again, not only for projects, but also for the day-to-day sales activity. If you're looking at booking in follow-up calls or you need to create a proposal to send out, again, we can add all of that in to this model-driven app. We've then got projects. So if I just open up this project section, so again, we've got an overview there. And again, we've got this stage and gate process as well. So once we've had a lead through to an opportunity and now it's a project, this is where the project management team might get involved. We can look at what quotes were sent out, what they approved, what type of material or things are we actually doing for them. We can allocate resource. So if we want to allocate a particular internal user to this project, that's again something we can do with model-driven apps. Any particular assets, so we've got things like quotes or proposals which we can capture. Again, communication. So if we're looking at having milestones throughout the project, where we want to have kickoff calls, maybe a call halfway through the project, and any email correspondence, again, we can capture that as shown before. And again, if there's particular tasks for that project or risks that we need people to action or any issues, again, we can add all of that and start to alert people internally as well. We've then got timesheets. So going back to what I said before, if you're a very project heavy organization and you're looking at billing your customers on like an hourly basis, or for example, you've had a project and you've billed your customer 100 hours, let's say, you now can allocate that project to particular people, and they can then go ahead and start to fill in new records and add for this timesheet. So it might be that they search for the project internally, so it might be that Blue Ranger. This is the date, we work 5 hours, and this might just be consultancy time. We can then tick that. That's then going to allocate 5 of those hours against that particular project. And eventually, when we're looking at building out dashboards, for example, using Power BI, we might want to look at things like project profitability, for example. So if we've billed 100 hours for this particular project, but actually as an organization, we've spent 120 hours on this project, our Power BI dashboard showing project profitability is going to obviously be maybe alert us to say, well, actually, we've crept over on this project. It's taken longer than we thought. Now we can start to plan in next time. If we're doing a similar type of engagement, we know it's going to take a little bit longer than what we thought. So that's the type of thing that we've seen here. And also if people are just, again, using it to get paid, that's again something we can do as part of this. Just flicking over to this other model-driven app. This is, again, just showing that what we can do with it. So we've got account information or contact information. But again, what we've seen with these model-driven apps is one of the big things that we've seen with other CRM systems is some of them actually creating templates. So creating invoices or work orders. It can sometimes be quite a bit of a pain, and it doesn't always pull through what you need. So that's one of the things we've seen quite a lot of actually, and why we've seen customers move to model-driven apps. So you can see here we can build out quotations or work orders within this system. So you can see here you've got the product line items. We could add new products if we wanted to. So we'd have a bank or a table rather of products in the back end, and then you can add a quantity. You can see here if we're buying and selling, for example, we can have like the gross price or whatever it might be that you build, however you're building out a quotation. We can then generate a file. So these 4 Word documents here are just templates. And what we can do is effectively pull any of the data from any of these fields into the template. We can even add free text as well if we wanted to. So if we just generate an invoice, so you can see here, we've got generate file at the top. So in hopefully not too long, it's been a live demo, hopefully it doesn't take too long. But that should then generate a file in the back end, which thankfully it has. It's got file generated successfully. You can then go on to documents. So you can see here, we've now got this new invoice. So this actual invoice is just a Word document that is actually living in a file structure now in SharePoint. So again, if you're an organization that's starting to use SharePoint, or you've been using SharePoint for a while for all your files and documents, this is actually just accessing a new document within the model-driven app interface, but we can actually store all this in a nice folder structure within SharePoint. So if I open up this particular invoice, you can see here it's a template, which is then just pulling through certain information, and then we can edit it if we wanted to. So again, what we've seen with other CRM systems previously is it can be a bit of a challenge editing documents if they're not quite right. Whereas all you're doing here is editing a Word document. So if you did want to make any slight tweaks, really easy to do so. Once you made a change and it's saved, that's now the latest version of that particular invoice as well. So when it comes to version control, again, we're using SharePoint, so that's really easy. That can now be sent out to the customer. Again, we can incorporate automatic invoice emails to attach that and send it out using Power Automate. So again, we're just speeding up this process. So I just click back off that. So again, that's really easy to do. If we're building out those quotations, as I mentioned, you might then want a product stock list in the back end. So if we're building out either products or however it is you're billing your customer, we can have a product list in the back end, which the team can then use to build out quotations. What we've seen with this as well is that we've got stock. So if we're actually utilizing physical material, we might have a stock list or in the warehouse, for example. Again, we can update that really easily so that when the sales team are building out things, if the stock list is running low, for example, we might want to trigger an alert. So if this level reaches below a certain threshold, we might want to alert certain people that they need to go ahead and to address that. So that's the sort of thing that we see with CRM systems using the Power Platform. One of the benefits, as I mentioned, is then the reporting off the back of this. So if I just flick over to these reports. So what's nice about having all that information captured within the model-driven app is, again, it makes life really easy to then report on it all. So this is just an example of like a monthly summary or a sales summary, lead summary, where we can capture how many leads we've had. We then might want to filter by the source. So where have those leads come from? What are they interested in? Was it from marketing? Have the sales team generated it, etc., etc.? So again, all that information can be put into a dashboard, which you then might want to either email out or have certain people view it. So we see a lot of use cases with reporting, and there's probably no end really to what you can start to report on once you get into the weeds of it all. But yeah, that's some of the things that we've seen. If I go to like a lead summary, so again, all of this information is just pulling through from live data that we already got within the model-driven app. So again, this is really useful for a lot of organizations. And I mentioned things like project profitability before, or even people's timesheet entries. We can log all of that within these dashboards, and again, report on what we want, just to help make organizations, I suppose, just make more informed decisions when moving forward. If they're then looking at things like Copilot and sort of AI models, again, we're just sort of interfacing that with the current Microsoft stack, so that becomes a lot easier as well. One of the things I did quickly want to mention as well, just in terms of the stock list. So with Power Apps, for those that haven't really done much with Power Apps before, it could be that actually you want to lock certain things down as well. So for example, you don't want the sales team to be able to go into the product details and edit costs. It might just want to be limited to certain people. What's nice about this is we can control permissions. So if we don't want certain people having access to parts of the model-driven app, we can lock it down as much or as little as we want, which is a massive positive. We might not want the sales team seeing all the projects, and we might want the project management team seeing all the leads. So again, we can customize it as much as you want, really, from that perspective. Moving on to the Power Pages element of it. So we did a little mock-up of a Power Pages solution. So this is, as I mentioned, Power Pages is effectively an external portal. So if you're sharing information with your customers, for example, you can add this as an extension of your website. So the way that Power Pages works is you've got two different types of licenses that you would need for this. So you've got Power Pages authenticated licenses. An authenticated license allows you to grant access effectively to certain people that you want to have access to your portal. So it might be that you grant access to your clients, for example, and you know exactly who has got access. There's also Power Pages anonymous licensing. So that is where, as it very much what it says on the tin, you don't know who's got access. Anyone can go on and access, but obviously we can limit what they can see. So examples of where this has worked well is you might initially have anonymous users only being able to go onto the portal and submit a form. So they might want to request to either work with yourselves or talk to you about specifications or all kinds of different things where they can fill out a form. That will then get pushed through into the model-driven app where the team can then deal with it. They might have their calls, meetings, etc., and now they're doing a project with you. At this point, you now might want to grant them access to the authenticated user license, where they can then go in and view their actual information. So this is what this dashboard is now showing. So this is a project dashboard where, as a customer of Valto, I might be able to go in and see what active projects I've got on and upload any documentation or view my own reports, that sort of thing. All of that can be shared with the customer through a Power Pages solution. And all we're doing is pushing information through that model-driven app into a Power Pages solution. So in this particular example, you can see here I've got a few different projects on the go with Valto. They must be good. So you can see here we've got like a SharePoint migration and modernization project. We can see the progress of that particular project as well. So what we've seen previously as well is, if I just go back to this projects area and click on a project, this stage and gate process, we actually might want to reflect where the project is up to in the Power Pages portal using that stage and gate process, for example, so the customer's always updated. If we want to then go into details, you can see we've ticked off the certain stages as to where things are at. If there's any risks, we might want to then be notified. So as a customer, I want to be notified, actually, we're coming up with this project risk or something is happening. We might want to schedule a call. If we're then uploading documentation, so we've sent out all our specifications or requirements, and maybe Valto shared the low-level design with us, for example, I could view all that project documentation within the Power Pages solution. Any financials, so we've discussed before the project, this is the budget, this is what we've agreed, this is based on the billing milestones, for example, this is where we're up to in terms of financials. Communication, so again, we can capture any emails or meetings, etc. Obviously, we've got timelines, so if anything's changing. So all of that type of functionality is what we're seeing with Power Pages. So it's, again, a really powerful tool that I think not too many organizations are even aware of is possible. They might use it as they don't really know much about what Power Pages does or how it could fit in really to a full sort of blown CRM. So this is the type of thing that we're seeing it used for. So yeah, again, just having all of that information to hand. Again, we've seen it for organizations where they want to share, say, onboarding packs or loads of documents, and they want their clients to have a more secure way of sending information through, maybe sensitive information, or they want to then share actual reports, so we can actually embed Power BI into these Power Pages as well. So a customer might be using you for a particular purpose, and they want to then see, what's happening and what's the actual data showing. Again, we can reflect all of that within a Power Pages solution as well. So just to go back to here. So that was just a bit of an example as to where we've actually seen these types of solutions used and how they fit in with a CRM. So to sort of go through really the benefits of going more bespoke, really. So rather than getting an off-the-shelf system that, again, isn't necessarily scalable with your organization, the benefits of utilizing this type of platform is it actually fits how you work. So when I go back to all those tables, the fields, the business process flows, the workflows, they are all customizable to how you would like to operate. So obviously, as I mentioned, we see a lot of organizations stuck fitting the way that their current CRM works. Whereas in an ideal world, they'd want to go, right, this is how our business actually works. We want to fit the process around this. That's where this has a massive advantage. So lower costs versus traditional CRMs. So at the moment, to actually have access to a model-driven app for an organization, you need a Power Apps per app license, which I believe is around the £4.10 mark. I know the Microsoft license costs change every now and again, but I believe it's around £4.10 per user per month, which again is a heck of a lot cheaper than some of the other systems out there. It's more of an agile solution. So as mentioned, businesses change quickly, especially if you're undergoing growth or new compliance rules or acquisitions, that sort of thing. It's a lot harder to adapt with off-the-shelf systems, whereas with the Power Platform, you can adapt very quickly without having to, I suppose, pay for major upgrades or customizations with those off-the-shelf systems. Ownership is a big one. So a lot of organizations want to be, I suppose, fully in control of their data. So rather than having their data sat somewhere else, all of the data utilizing the model-driven app approach or the Power Platform approach and SharePoint is you're not renting someone else's, I suppose, data or hosting, anything like that. It's all going to be sat within your own Microsoft environment, which again is a huge benefit. So you're fully in control of all of that data. And then I suppose big one as well, efficiency. So being able to constantly adapt the system, and there's going to be more and more processes the more you get into it, or where you're looking at it's quite a manual way of doing things. How can we automate it? That's something we just keep adding functionality over time to the model-driven app as and when you see fit. And there's obviously workarounds with automation. And obviously then we've got more insights with Power BI and obviously things like Fabric now that are coming out to make things a lot easier. So yeah, we're not wrestling with a system. We've then got integrations with existing systems as well. So naturally, when we chat to customers, they're either utilizing lots of different systems for various functionality, but they struggle to get all of those to talk to each other, or they might be very Excel heavy and they're actually using spreadsheets for all the different components, as well as things like Sage or Xero for their financial systems, and it doesn't really integrate very well. So one of the biggest strengths of the Power Platform, or its power, if you like, comes from that ability and ease of integration. So it's part of the Microsoft stack, obviously. So it talks natively to things like Teams, Outlook, Excel, SharePoint, if you're using Dynamics or Business Central and Azure. So you're not duplicating or double handling data. And then with all the pre-built connectors and APIs, again, you can see these CRM or model-driven apps use as effectively like a centralized location to bring all that data in. So rather than having to duplicate things and retype everything out, we're pulling that data into one platform, which you can then use to report on and do what you need to do. So that, again, is something we see a lot of. The Teams integration is actually a really cool one, especially when it comes to things like project management as well. So for us, actually, internally, we do something very similar with Teams, where every time a project is created, we actually then create a project thread in Teams where we can have our own kickoff calls done within that particular thread. Any documentation, again, we can put into that thread. And when we're filling out timesheets on projects, we might want to say, actually, this is a risk, and we can then send an alert and it'll push that through into Teams so the relevant people can see, actually, we're on track to be going way over what we said we were going to be doing in terms of this project. So that's, again, just one of the cool integrations that we see. So yeah, when it's pulling all that data and automating actions, again, we're just integrating with lots of different systems you're already utilizing and building that sort of centralized location. So sort of conclusions really, and sort of next steps. So I suppose for us and what we have seen a lot with our customer base are that the traditional CRMs can be seen as a bit overkill now, especially when we're looking at the Power Platform to make more sort of flexible alternatives with a CRM, obviously fitting it to how you actually want to work, so fitting it to you rather than the other way around. When we're utilizing things like Power BI to get actual insights and Power Automate for the automation behind it, it can become a really powerful tool. And then combining that with like the customer benefits as well, So being able to build out those Power Pages solutions to allow them to do a bit more sort of self-serve. That's where we're really seeing the benefits when you combine all of those together to build, I suppose, a really powerful CRM tool. So just a bit about how we then help organizations. So we actually do like an hour consultation, which is completely free, to talk through what your ideas are, or you might say, we've got this particular process, we're utilizing these sorts of tools, but it's just not doing exactly what we need. We can talk through how potentially the likes of what I've shown today could be more beneficial, and sort of walking through the process, making sure that it's all going to be working how you need it to do. So obviously the big things we need to cover off is the type of Power Apps we're going to be looking at, where the data is going to be, licensing as well is going to be a really important factor for this. So again, we can talk through the types of licenses involved and the cost for those licenses to make sure that it's going to be a scalable and sort of good solution for yourselves. So we'll, and for those that are going to be watching this on YouTube as well, we'll put a contact link down below where you can get in touch to run through any ideas that you may have about potential sort of transformation on this side. So appreciate you all listening. I know I've got a few questions as well, so I can have a little run through of some of the questions that we've been asked. We've had a couple pop through, so bear with me. So we've got, why didn't Dynamics feature on your list? So yeah, so it's a good point. So Dynamics, again, we've seen a lot for that type of functionality. The reason we didn't show Dynamics on this particular call was, for a lot of organizations, Dynamics licenses can be quite expensive. So what we've shown today is actually using model-driven apps. So I suppose Dynamics is built using model-driven apps in effect for a much cheaper license cost. So a lot of people we speak to, when we're looking at, say, 100 to 300 user size organization, the Dynamics licenses just aren't feasible. It's too expensive. Whereas you compare it to a £4.10 license per user per month, that then becomes a much better solution, or especially for organizations that maybe don't have a CRM in the first instance. This is a great way of actually scaling that out. So eventually they might move into Dynamics, and it's really easy to then move from a model-driven app into Dynamics, but they've got the benefit there of not having to pay a lot for those sort of monthly license costs as well. So that was one of the reasons we didn't necessarily touch on Dynamics in this particular one, but there will definitely be a lot of people that already use Dynamics for this type of thing as well. There was another question that I have been asked, and that was if you're utilizing Excel documents for all of the different processes, how easy is it to then move across to this type of CRM? So that's a good question. So the Excel, again, we see a lot of people use Excel, not only for capturing particular processes or capturing information, they then use Excel rather than Power BI as well to show reports. So it's actually much easier to map Excel into a model-driven app, or just taking all those fields, all the data, and just pushing that into the model-driven app, where we can then add all the automation to it and then plug Power BI in to then start to report on everything. So yeah, we see that a lot. It's a much easier transition than you potentially think, and it'll obviously allow a lot more for automation with things like templates, emails, alerts, that sort of thing, which you potentially might not be getting as much with the Excel process. So I don't think we've got any other questions at the moment, but yeah, I think that'll probably do us then for this one. I know we're on about 50 minutes now, but yeah, if you do have any other questions at all, then do please feel free to reach out to myself directly on either on LinkedIn, or you can drop me an email. And for those that are watching on YouTube, obviously, please do leave your comments in the comments section, and we'll get back to you pretty sharpish on any of those questions that you do have. So thank you very much for attending this particular webinar, and hopefully see you in the next one.